Record. Okay, so as I said, my name's Kiva from the OEM Music Centre, and thank you all for coming here. So tonight we're going to be hearing from Claire Rose from Women in Control and 3 of the community members you can see that are already here. Really excited to hear about the progress that they've been making recently, things that they've achieved, challenges that they've come across, success stories, anything else that they want to share with us. So I'm going to hand over to the lovely Claire, and yeah, a change of accents. Here we go.
Thank you so much. And yeah, hello everyone. My name is Claire. I am the Women in Control Community Manager. For those who don't know who Women in Control are, I think I saw a few of you in Nadia's session earlier today. So we're basically a not-for-profit organisation, and we help to empower the women in the industry to be the next generations of female leaders. In all different sectors, and it's not just music industry as well, it's the creative industries too. We also campaign and lobby, giving the community a voice, and we also run a lot of reports. So we've done Seat at the Table report and our Radio Silence report, which kind of basically, we love data. Having that data is really important. So it kind of just shows all the sort of gender disparity and ethnicity disparity across the industry at all levels, especially at a top level from CEO and board members. So we can kind of see where we are at the moment and how much things need to improve. So I'm a community manager. So I joined Women in Control, oh God, I don't even know what year it is, what time it is, however long ago it was. Last year, me and Nadia set up a community forum online to help women to connect, to learn, to develop, and to network as well in a safe space, basically. You can share ideas, share articles. We post loads of job articles as well. I do a lot of one-to-ones with job skills and CV writing and interview practices too. So today, it's enough about me. I'm joined by 3 of our amazing community members. And we're basically just going to have a discussion about what the community is, what it does, the benefits, and why these kind of communities are needed. So I'm going to ask you to all introduce yourself, and I'm going to go from what's on my screen, from left to right. So Vanessa, can you kind of introduce yourself, who you are, and what you do in the industry?
Sure, of course. So hi everyone, I'm Vanessa. I am an artist manager. I also run an organisation for women as well called Cactus City, which started off as a recording studio and safe space for females and gender minorities in the industry, but now it's become something bigger, become a bit of a movement as well. Similar to what Nadia's done with Women in Control, really, these things grow so quickly, I think, due to the nature of what's going on in the industry. I've been in and out of the industry for about 10 years, but more seriously been involved in it for the last 3 years. So that's me.
Amazing, thank you. And Warda, you're next.
Hi, my name is Warda Sampar, and I have 3 different jobs basically. So I'm a presenter for the Beat London FM. I have a show called The B Word, and we talk about different topics like what we're going to talk about today, and loads of other crazy stuff as well. I'm the editor of Link Up TV as well. So I manage the website, so all the news and the gossips and the music videos and stuff like that. And I'm also a publicist. So I've worked with over 300-400 artists, super talented artists, and I love it.
Amazing. And how do you get the time to do all those different things?
Always ask me that, and I don't even know how I do it. I can't tell you how I do it, but I think when you have a passion for something, you make room to do it, kind of thing. And I think we're lucky because of the jobs that we do. It's so creative. You kind of can balance many things at once in the industry. So I try.
Well, you're smashing it. But thank you. And Miri?
Hey everybody, so my artist name is Miri. I'm a music artist and songwriter. I'm also on a thing called the Beat Board, which is an advisory board for the Featured Artists Coalition. I'm a social media ambassador for the FLIS, and I do various work as well in music and mental health, and also working with young people, just helping young people to empower themselves through music. And I'm also an LGBTQ+ ambassador for Women in Control. I get around. Yeah. I'll get a bet.
Amazing. So yeah, we've all been in the industry for quite a while, and the reason why we kind of do what we do and join sort of communities like Women in Control is because we all have faced certain barriers. So from the start of your kind of journey, I guess, like, what were some of the main barriers that you faced? And that's open to anyone, basically.
Can I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
For me, I think I've always worked with men throughout the industry. So I worked with Link Up TV, which is full of men. I was a manager at one point, and I had to deal with men that would talk down to me because I was a woman. I'm a publicist as well, and I've worked with so many men as well. So I've had to deal with managers, and because I'm a woman, I'm quite a confrontational person. So I'm quite straight to the point. I'm not afraid to go into meetings and have meetings with men. I could be the only woman, I don't care, but we're going to talk about X, Y, Z. And I think some of the issues that I've had is men can be intimidated by that. A man could do the exact same thing I'm doing, and you won't be called aggressive or you won't be called too much. And those are the issues that I've had to deal with over the years. And this is one of the reasons to why I love this platform, because you get to hear everyone else's, not issues, but their situations and what they've been through. And with Link Up TV, it's a funny one because obviously I'm the woman there, and we always have meetings on how to get more female artists on the channel or how to do more shows to feature more female artists. And I've always tried to push that. So in my team, when I started it off, it was all men. All men were writers. And now I have most of the writers are women now. Or the people that I work with in the publicist team, I mainly want to work closely with women. So in the industry, I've tried to make an effort with whatever opportunity I have to try and work with women who actually are amazing, who are just strong-headed, who ain't scared to talk. And if they are, let's talk about it. Let me help you and let's move forward. I'm not an expertise, but I mean, I've always worked with men, and I've always had the issue of you're being too aggressive or X, Y, Z, but I'm just doing exactly what a man would do. But because I'm a woman, I've got hair and whatever, it's a bit too much. So that's been, I think, a big struggle for me over the industry. I've been in the industry for about 6 years now, and I'm only just now on a, like, if you don't mind me swearing, but like a fuck it mode. Like, I just don't really care at this point. And I think because I've been like that, I've been able to kind of give myself and get myself opportunities rather than just being like, I can't say too much or I can't speak too much or whatever. So yeah, I think that was my main issue throughout being in this industry, is just being able to talk up, but then being called too aggressive, or not being able to put certain females forward because men are dominating a certain, industry or whatever. It's just, it's been a lot, but I mean, I'm a fighter, so I've tried to do it.
I love that. And like, I literally am so like you. I'm in that mode now where I'm like, I don't care what people think of me now. Like, if you want to think that I'm bossy, if you want to think that I'm aggressive or whatever, then that's your problem and it's not mine, because you'll stay at this level and I'll go up here. So, I mean, Vanessa, Miri, what are your kind of experiences?
I really relate to that whole that whole energy of being a woman, knowing what you want and having a focus and determination, but being told that you're controlling or that you're aggressive. And I feel like it's only in the past few years when I've just seen more female-led organizations launch, or more women speaking out, that I've realized, actually, no, that's not about me. That's actually about some of the men that I've come across. Or, I remember quite a few years back just being in a recording session, just doing some session work, and there was two male songwriters and what was called like a vocal technician, and he was basically trying to undermine me. I didn't actually realize that's what was happening at the time, but he was trying to undermine what I was doing in order to make himself look good. And I do sometimes feel, as a woman in music, that I'm just sort of got to fight or work even harder. Like, I remember, again, back in the day, just being signed to a management, and there was a male artist who could be a little bit rude or show up late. and it was okay, it was acceptable. But I know if I was to do that, that would not be tolerated at all. So I feel like you got to have like a lot of energy, a lot of heart, a lot of passion. And it's so important to have platforms like Women in Control, because you're not alone with it. And I always find just hearing other women share their stories in the industry, I find that really empowering and also reassuring, because before this, like when I first started out in music, you didn't hear these stories and these experiences. So I've spent many years second guessing myself. So yeah, it's really empowering to have platforms like this.
Completely. I completely, I echo so many things that you've said there. I think that empowering nature of having all these women's platforms that have sprung up in music, and a lot of them have sprung up recently. I don't know if anyone else has noticed, like in the past few years, lots of women's organizations have sprung up in music, and it feels like there's a reason. I think we all are seeing each other's stories. We're all feeling that fuck it moment. You know what? I'm just going to do what I want. And I think that imposter syndrome that creeps in when people are really trying to, bring you down, they're undermining the things that you're saying. I think that's something that a lot of that's the common story that we face as women in the industry. And it's really interesting to hear you both say that it's actually that, you've been told that you're controlling or you're aggressive, because it's actually been the opposite for me. Like I've always been seen as like a really girly girl, for want of a better way of putting it. And people have told me to pretend to be a man and to get respect in the industry. And that's one of the first things that ever happened to me when I was first setting up my management company. So the first management company I set up was called Queen Management, for the reason that I was told to pretend to be a man. I was like, I can't do that. Like, how can I do that? That makes no sense, to be told to put my initial instead of my first name so that people wouldn't know if I was a man or a woman. And that was quite a common thing. And it even happened at panels, actually. So I go to panels, and this is the advice that women were given who'd been in the industry for some time. And, that was probably the appropriate advice from their perspective, because it's what had worked for them to get them places. But I feel like now we've come past that. We've really come past that moment to turn around and say, actually, you know what? We're not doing this anymore. Like, we are so done with this. It's time for women to come and claim our positions now. And I think, this Women in Control community and is so important to that. It's really integral. Like, we're doing a great job within the community of just being able to reach out to each other. I think that's one big thing for me within the Women in Control community, is there isn't that moment of people are figuring each other out, seeing what people can offer for each other. They're actually just coming to give. Everyone's just coming to give, and no one's really coming drastically to take. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about the community that I've found.
Did you find that? I think some of you have picked up on it, but like when the Seat at the Table report came out and the radio disparity report, radio silence came out, was it kind of, obviously it's really shocking to see that data and be like, oh my God, whatever. But it's something we all knew, basically. But for me, I kind of found it a little bit, not, I think soothing is the wrong word, but I kind of felt like, oh, I'm not the only one that thinks like that. I'm not the only one that is worried about like having kids and my career. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was kind of like those were in front of me, and it was actually really nice to kind of, in a weird way, have what statements were going on, like were being said, even though they're anonymous, like people were feeling the same. So it wasn't in my head, because I completely thought it was in my head. But was that the same for you guys, or?
I think so. For me, it definitely was. I think because we get alone in our thoughts, we overthink things. And I think before the dawn of the internet, it was very difficult to connect with people in the way that we do now. And I think since COVID, I think we're even more connected, and we're even, we're speaking to each other more than ever. And I think one of the big things for me is how accepting we are of people saying, you know what, this time is not good for a meeting because I've got to put my toddler down for a nap. And it's so normal. It feels normal now, and that never felt normal before. So I think, it is reassuring to know you weren't alone, but it is nice to take these drastic steps forward in such a quick time, I think.
I was going to say, I found the radio report really interesting, and yeah, just kind of eye-opening. I did not know that was going on behind the scenes, but it kind of again just sort of again reassured me that through doing music for so many years that it's not my fault that doors haven't always opened. And I've found as an artist, as a creative, that I've been hard on myself a lot and tried to do all the so-called right things. And then I think just with these reports coming out, it's showing pure facts, studied facts, that there's a reason that even if it's not me personally, that why gender minority artists or women are not getting their seat at the table, or not getting the recognition and support that they deserve for what they're doing, either as an artist or behind the scenes.
Even with like women of color as well, like it's crazy. I think one of you guys mentioned in terms of, I think it was Vanessa, you mentioned names. Like when I was younger, a lot of the times when I was applying for roles, it was difficult because my name was quite unique. But a lot of my friends who had kind of just the normal name, normal in Britain, they would get jobs easily. So why is it a case of like I have to worry about the fact that I'm a woman and I'm Black to get a job? And that's just a situation that we've had to deal with for so many years. And what's funny is that everyone was scared to talk about it. Everyone was really, really scared to talk about it. And the fact that we're at a point right now where we can have panels and we can talk about it on Twitter and everyone's going crazy about it, I love it. I couldn't be more happier now than I've ever been. I'm so proud of everyone for being so honest and sharing their story, because I didn't realize how much so many people can relate to the same thing. It's crazy. Remember, in this industry, it's male dominated. And the fact that we're in this, we should be proud of ourselves. And to then see other people's stories and how they're struggled, it's amazing. It's amazing.
I think Nadia was really brave to go and do that research and happily just push it out the way she did. The actually pushing that out there, and the amount of traction it got so much attention so quickly, and it was great. I was really glad to see that. And I know there's a lot of research that's going on right now behind the scenes, and it's going to get worse. The numbers of these figures are going to get worse, the information's going to get worse that's out there, and the attention's going to come. I think if people aren't on board with it now, they're really going to look like they were on the wrong side of history in a couple of years' time. Like that's definitely something that's on the doorknob.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, remember when like everyone was doing a lot of Black Lives Matter protests, and a lot of people were looking at companies to see who was going to post about supporting it, and the companies that wouldn't support it, everyone was gunning for them, put on Twitter saying, well, now we know that you guys don't really support Black people. Do you know what I mean? Or the people that were jumping on to support Black people, you haven't hired any Black person in your company. So it's so interesting to see that point of view. And this is why I love it when people are being honest right now. I love it. I can change it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think those kind of reports show us that data and say, like, this is where you're at. And actually, if the second report comes around and you haven't changed, you're going to look really bad. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, like, it's a kind of, it's a great way to be like, to hold people accountable for stuff like that now, which is really, really important, because it's all great and well, talking about it, which we all do, all, four of us have had loads of many conversations about it, but actually what we kind of want to see now is some kind of like action to that. So Vanessa, you were saying like so many people, like so many more like women organizations are popping up, like, which is amazing. Like, how important do you think like organizations like Women in Control and other ones that pop up and are like have their place in the music industry, and do you think that they will always be needed? Because is there going to come a time where you will kind of think, hopefully this might not be needed because we'll be at a place where it might not be needed, or do we always will need these kind of organizations?
I think so from our perspective at Cactus City, we always say we don't want to be here. That's one of the biggest things that we always say. We actually don't want to exist, but whilst we're needed, we will be here. So whilst people need that safe space, whilst people need that, we will be here. I don't think we'll see a time in our lifetime that we won't be needed, but I do hope that it'll be a point where we are not so much needed, but we can do the stuff we want to do, because obviously we don't want to spend all our time speaking about these issues. We'd actually rather much be doing the stuff we enjoy most, but we do this because we care and because, you know, we want to see the next generations have a better time in the music industry. But I also want to see women who've left the industry because it was awful for them or difficult, or they couldn't get past that glass ceiling, be able to come back into the industry because they actually have the skills to be able to come back in, and that would be something that I'd really like to see as well. So I do think, you know, it is the case that will probably be needed for some time. It's only a very recent change that's been going on. These organizations have been cropping up, and I think they are all so integral. They all perform such different functions, and that's what I think is so brilliant about them, like the F List, Women in Control, Girls Irate, Women in Sound, that Women Produce Music. There's so many different organizations, Moving the Needle. There's, you know, I could go on for ages. I know on the FS sister organization's website, they have like 45 to 50 different organizations that are on there. And they all just perform such integral parts and pieces, and then we're just so needed all over the, you know, it's not just within London. We want to be able to reach out to rural areas. So you know, I'd like to see that we aren't needed, but the reality is this is showing us that we are needed, and we might be needed for some time.
Yeah, I think we've got a long way to go at this point. And I think platforms like this, I'm so happy. And I feel like even if we do get to agree, I still think we've got a long way to go.
Yep. Oh, she's on mute now, I was going to say. Yeah, no, that's great. That's absolutely great. And one thing I kind of wanted to come on to is just like many organizations, like, you know, you've all taken part in Women in Control events, like Warder, like you're always like, I've listened to you many times on Clubhouse, which has been amazing. And Miri, you've done an LGBTQ plus event start of this year, last year, I can't even remember. That's so bad. Like COVID years are merging into one. Like, how important is it to you guys that those kind of opportunities are kind of there for you to do? So like one of the things that, you know, we get quite a lot of young women who are kind of trying to get their foot in the door of the industry, and we kind of help put on events like what we did. We do workshops and skills workshops. So how important is it that those things are there for people to do and be part of?
I think it's a huge impact on a lot of people. I think a lot of people were scared to even, do you know what's crazy about Women in Control that I love actually is the fact that everyone can swap jobs. Oh, did you know that there's this job opportunity? Like back in the day, you could never do that. You could never do that. And I think for me with doing panels, I've learned so much about so many people. I'm only one person. There's so many of us. And I've heard like the most disgusting situations that women have been through in the industry. And it's made me feel like, okay, cool. Now I know that I've got to do this. Or if I see that kind of sign, I've got to do this. Or if I see this opportunities, I know that Women in Control have a board and I can pull it on there. And so it might help someone else. So I think it's so important. I don't think it should stop anytime soon. These are the kind of things we need to continue doing, because men have like gentlemen clubs and they have clubs and etc. So I think we actually need stuff like that.
That's such a good point about gentlemen's clubs, actually, because that nepotism and that handshaking is what, you know, gets so many people their roles, but sometimes they're just actually, you know, not even suited to these roles. You know, men are more likely to go for a role that they're not actually qualified for, whereas women will not go for roles they are qualified for. So, you know, all these panels I think really help. You put such a human face on people in the industry, and you get to see how normal everyone is, really, because everyone sees the industry as being really glamorous, but I think that we've really stripped things back now, being able to connect with each other the way that we have. So I think that's really important, because it is scary, it's daunting, and lots of creatives, as we all are, as much as we might be in a position that is considered professional and executive, we're very sensitive people generally. You know, we're more sensitive than the average person as artists. So you know, I think it's important that we keep having these panels, so we seem like an approachable, real industry that people can actually come into, and it's something that's realistic for them, and it's a realistic career.
Definitely. I've definitely not been glamorous the past 2 years. I've been in jogging bottoms the entire time, so it's definitely not been glamorous for me. But yeah, I definitely get that. And I think, you know, I'm definitely, especially at the moment, talking to a lot more people who are trying to apply for jobs. And, you know, in the situation that we are in the world, there's a higher demand for jobs than normal. And, you know, one of the things that kind of I find comes across from the women I'm talking to is like when they see a job application, they'll be like, oh, there's one thing I can't do on that application, so I'm not going to apply. I'm like, no, throw it in, just do it anyway. Like literally, I did that with my day job. I was like, there was lots of things I couldn't do. And I was like, no, I'm throwing it in because I know I can do it. So it's like giving them then that kind of confidence to do it. Like, and just sort of say like, I guess if it's something like, if it's required to speak French and you can't speak French, maybe not. But like, but Miri, you're a one of our LGBTQ plus. I was just wondering if you could tell us, tell our audience a bit about it and what you kind of do.
Yeah, so myself and Joanne, who is the other LGBTQ plus ambassador, we put on an event, I think it was February, I think it was for LGBT History Month, just thinking on the merging of the dates and stuff. That was really special, and we got a few other speakers and we spoke about Section 28, our experience in the world as well as through music, and we got some lovely feedback from the people who attended the event, and just being able to ask questions in a safe space. And it's sort of been prolonged a little bit because we've all been really busy, but we are looking to do another event very soon as well, talking about language within the LGBTQ plus community. And because even for myself as a queer person, there's new meanings, things that, you know, even like saying queer to the older generation, that was like a really bad word, but now there's new generations which are owning that word and feel comfortable to use. So that will be the next plan, to put on an event and just I think it's just so important just to have spaces where people can listen, learn, and also ask questions, and not feel silly to ask questions, because the way that we can keep moving forward is to keep talking, and not just talking, because I know we can just talk, but through talking we can take action as well. Because if we don't know how something works, or we don't know how other people feel, then we're sort of like, we don't always have the clarity on knowing what action to take in order to really elevate and cultivate necessary change.
Exactly. I love that. And just to like pick on something that you just said, is like talking in a safe space. So we have so many discussions about lots of different things at Women in Control and all over the industry, and being able to share a floor, if you will, a virtual floor with like-minded people, to me is so, it's so nice. Do you know what I mean? Without feeling like I'm going to be judged or victimized or something like that. I mean, I remember there was a clubhouse that we did, Wardo, and I think you were on it, and it was talking about our sole female stages needed, or do you remember? And it was a really interesting discussion, and some people were saying like, no, they're not needed because they should be on a normal lineup, or yes, they are needed. And, you know, people still have like differences and, you know, have different opinions, but it was nice because no one came away from it going, oh my God, that person. But like, that was a really interesting topic, right?
Mm-hmm. I think it's good though that we can have discussions, and like I said, not everyone's going to agree, but I think like you're going to have this one person that might agree with me, you're going to have another person that might agree with you, and I think those are needed. We can't be sitting here and saying the same thing over and over again, because not everyone relates to the same thing, do they? So I thought it was amazing, to be honest. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it's such an interesting discussion because like, obviously we've got key change now, and I know that Girls on Rate is signing up 50-50 as well, which is amazing. And that was that notorious, I think it was Wireless that had that female station. It was like a box, and it was awful. yeah, it's just, those are the kind of things I really like to see progress in the industry now, is seeing those kind of like held accountable. I mean, you must have seen it over when over the spring when the lineups were coming out, and it was still so male dominated. I mean, how did you guys all feel about that?
Can I say, sorry, go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just say very quickly, it just as you were saying that, it kind of made me feel like when before the pandemic and when I was gigging a lot, the amount of times that male promoters would want to book me for International Women's Day or specific, like, oh, we're going to do an all women's lineup, or when I was on lineups which were predominantly male, that they put me right at the start. You know, that throwaway artist kind of thing, like, oh yeah, we'll put her first because in case, you know, for whatever reason. And again, that's something that there were definitely, I was on a panel discussion which Vic Bain at the F-List was chairing for One Fest, and it was really interesting speaking to some of the festival founders who were really signed up to Key Change and really making a difference, and it felt so inspiring. And then seeing all those lineups, and it was like, hello, you know, I literally think some of those festival owners just don't care, or if there's like this sort of idea that if you're a female artist, you're not going to draw a crowd. But I think it was Reading and Leeds where Billie Eilish, if I have this correct, that she drew, I think, one of the biggest crowds. But yeah, it's horrific. It's unacceptable. And yeah, it needs to not just be talking, but we need to see changes on those festival lineups.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think, you know, it's all, a lot of this stuff goes much further back than just the festival lineup. I think people are really outraged by the festival lineup because that's what we see, that's what the fans see. There's a lot of talk about that, but it really goes, you know, further back than that. It's behind the scenes. It's where acts have an act that's linked to them. So it's like, if you're going to take this act, you also need to put this act on, and you need to put this act on. Are those, you know, are people saying, okay, actually my roster from a management or from a booking company's perspective, agency perspective, is that actually balanced? Are we saying, actually, okay, put this male artist on, and now these other two male artists on as well, if you want this artist? So there's so many other factors that are at play with it. And, you know, it's that network as well in the background. Obviously, everyone's been waiting to get on stage, so they're all sort of talking to each other. They're not taking into account female artists, they're just taking into account, who do we know, who's our friends, who we've got long-term relationships with. A lot of those higher levels will be men, because we see that women don't have those higher level positions. So they're just not taking into account women when they're having that thought process. We're just not taking into account. That is the big, you know, it's the big issue. It's the overarching issue of all of it, really. But it is disappointing, and it's just a shame that they didn't listen to the fans, because, you know, clearly the fans are paying attention. I know Sophie, who's in the chat, she's a big fan of Lucy McCourt, who is, you know, she actually, I think she was one of the first people who went viral with pointing out that these lineups were so uneven, and that was a few years ago. And I can't remember the name for her organisation. I'm sure if Sophie's still here, she'll pop it in there. She might have disappeared. She has disappeared, but you know, it is a shame, because as a fan, just from a fan perspective, I'm disappointed, let alone someone in the music industry.
And like, as well, like, obviously we've talked a lot about like being women, but men are obviously a massive important factor in this change. Like, when me and Nadia kind of made Women in Control, we kind of wanted male allies to be part of that conversation, because I've done events like my whole career about gender in the industry, and when I'm talking about it, quite a lot of the time I'm talking to a room full of women, you know, and that's great, but actually men aren't then hearing our issues and what the problem is. Like, do you think that we need more male allies, and how do we go about getting more male allies?
100%. I think what I tend to do with the guys that I know is I kind of just explain to them situations. I tell them about my experiences. I think it's just about sharing these stories and kind of getting guys involved. I know that we did a panel with Women in Control, and there was guys in the chat, and we were getting them to talk about their experiences and their views. I think things like that are really important. And speaking to our friends, a lot of us do have male friends. A lot of us do have male friends in the industry. It's about speaking to them about it, because some women are actually scared to have these conversations and think, maybe I don't want to seem like I'm nagging too much, or I don't want to seem like I'm doing too much, which is completely fine. But it's actually really good to kind of have these conversations. You know, men always have conversations amongst each other about things they don't like and what annoys them and what frustrates them and how to do better. So why can't we have these conversations with men that we know? So I just think it's better to just have conversations with the guys that we know in the industry, and like when we were doing the panels, getting more guys involved to speak, and so that they can actually see other people's perspective and what they've gone through. Because unless they're really heartless, they're like, okay, I get it. Because a lot of them don't actually understand, because they're men, they're not women, they haven't gone through what we've gone through. So it's just better to kind of just speak to our friends or people that we know, or if we're doing panels, get more men involved in as well, and stuff like that.
There's some really good points that you just brought up about they don't know, because they just don't know. It's not a case of sometimes that they don't care. Sometimes they actually just don't know what the issues are. So we're creating a charter at the minute, which has really, really simple pledges for people in recording studios, which are mostly owned by men, to undertake. And some of those things are just, it might sound really basic, but just to greet the women that come into the room, because often women are completely ignored when you go into a recording studio. It happened to me recently. I went into a really high profile studio recently, one of my artists. Everyone was greeted and said goodbye to. I was completely ignored. And then we had to come home to my house and re-record the vocals, and we did a better job in the house than that studio, because the setup was better in my house. So, you know, and I just thought, you don't think that I'm anything to do with the situation. You've assumed I'm a groupie, for want of a better word. But even if I was, like, you know, do I not deserve that respect to just be said hello to? So it's just those simple things that sometimes they don't know, even the simplest of things. And if we can get them on board with just those smaller things and actually start having those conversations, as you say, I think it's really important. And also, it's actually going to be dangerous if we don't chat to them, because there's a real rise of anti-feminist young men. So under Gen Z, there's a rise of anti-feminist young men, and they are really, really armed with misinformation that they've gotten from going down rabbit holes, and they really feel like they're being oppressed now. So they aren't on board with feminism in the same way that the millennial group are. So if we don't actually start involving them, and we don't actually start bringing them into the fix, because we actually can't fix the patriarchy, because it's been created by men, so we can't fix it. All we can do is just start, like, throwing objects against the brick wall. It's not doing anything. We do need men to be involved in fixing it, because it impacts them as well. Also, you know, one of the big things that we saw with my first studio space, so we made it a really feminine space. We often had rappers come in and they felt that they could be more vulnerable. They didn't feel like they had to put on a bravado. They felt like, you know what, this is really chill and comfortable. And it gives, you know, them that, it takes that toxicity away from their world as well. And I think that's really necessary. Like, it's, you know, feminism isn't just for women, and these things aren't just for women. It actually does help men sometimes as well, to be able to express those emotions that they often suppress. So, and I think that's important that we do involve them in those conversations for those reasons.
Yeah, I totally agree. And going off what both of you said, like, sometimes they just don't know. Like, I, in my role, I'm in a team of 3 men, and there's been, you know, kind of instances where someone, like, from externally has gone around and shaken their hand and completely ignored me. You know, and when I kind of raised it a couple of years later, it was like, oh, we didn't know. And it's like, but I just don't think, you haven't gone through it, so you don't necessarily notice those little things. It's not necessarily your fault. It's just you're not tuned into how women are, because we do notice those things quite a lot of the time. And, you know, my team is so wonderful. Like, they've messaged me saying, you know, if there's anything that we could do better, you know, please let us know. And that's so comforting. I mean, Miri, as an artist, like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important that men are involved in the conversation. And I find one of the youth music projects I work on is basically for young people in South London, and it's like a 7-week music industry program. And the young men we have on the program are just amazing. And we make sure as well just to always create a real supportive environment for everyone, for all the young people there. And that in itself is kind of educating, not educating actually, but just sowing important seeds. And it's kind of cool because the team that I'm working with, we're predominantly female led as well. And I think that in itself also speaks volumes. But I mean, I've been fortunate to work with some really great men in the industry, and I've also worked with some really difficult men who have contributed to creative experiences that should have been like really enjoyable and wonderful. Like for me, as an artist, as a creative, like studio that's my space to go and just channel everything I need to channel. And if you're working with people who are putting their own ideas, agendas, or just having their own sort of like ego trip, it's just exhausting. It's like walking down the street sometimes can be exhausting, having to sort of deal with certain attention or heckles and stuff, and to have that within your work is just, you don't need it. So yeah, it's really important. I think as well, what I've noticed is that the men who are aware, they don't always call out the men. They sort of make allowances, which has happened. And again, I think now, because as I was saying earlier, we're saying so many more women are speaking out, I feel less, I'm noticing that I'm not second guessing myself. Whereas there were times when I felt like I was just this moany woman, like just having issues with certain guys, and the men would just sort of be like, oh, I just think that's how they are. But again, if I was to behave in that way, I wouldn't have that sort of reaction. And I can guarantee those men or people would not want to work with me.
I find it crazy how we've all had to second guess ourselves in our career just because we're a woman. Like, I don't know what it is. It just infuriates me, because I just remember the situations I've been in where I've second guessed myself in terms of pay as well. And then found out the guy who was also basically going for the same project was, he was offered more, basically. He was offered more money than I was, but I could do a better job. I could do a better job. So things like, and I've had to second guess myself, thinking, I know I should be charging more than that, but why are they making me feel like I should be charging less? But then you're offering him more, and we're no different. We've got the same experience. We've been in the industry the same time, and you're offering him more money is purely because I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. So things like that. But I think we're just all at a point where we're just done second guessing ourselves. We're actually just done second guessing ourselves at this point.
Definitely.
One very quick thing to say about that gender pay gap issue, and that's, I'm very sick of men bringing up that women are gold diggers and want to be taken on dates, but they absolutely never bring up the gender pay gap. And they're always talking about going 50-50. It's like, well, when things are 50-50 and we're getting paid 50-50 and we're getting paid the same, then let's talk about going 50-50. But if you're not bringing that conversation up as well as bringing that up, then I don't think you really care about this issue.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things that really annoys me is just, it's kind of second guessing yourselves. Like, when people are charging for their work, but if it's a man, they'll just charge. But as women, we're like, is that too much? Is that too little? And actually, I kind of got to the point in my career now, I'm like, do you know what? I've been in the industry for 7 years. I know what my worth is now. And, I'm not just going to go for something. I'm going to push to what I think I should be at, like, now. And that's what I'm trying to do, like, with like people that are in the community that are trying to, like, get jobs and get a foot in the door. I'm like, go for what you think you should go for, and set that as a bar, and then maybe add 20% to it so you can have some wiggle room as well. That's what I always go in more than expected. But obviously, like, things are changing in the industry slowly. But what do you all would in the next like 3 years, let's say, what would you like to see change a bit more? Honestly, that's an open question to whoever wants to go first.
The pay, 100%, the pay, we still have that issue right now in terms of what Vanessa was just speaking about. I think that for me is something that still needs to be worked on, or, you know, having women doing more higher roles as well. Obviously, it's slowly getting better, which I'm seeing, which is amazing, but we're not there yet at all. I'm still seeing a lot of male-dominated companies that are having high power when women should be there as well. So I think them two are the main ones for me. I think it's pay, women feeling like they can't be charging more, or when it comes to a salary, I should be getting more than that, having the confidence to be like, I know my worth. I think a lot of the time, I know that they've started doing, like in the industry, like a therapy thing for the music industry as well. I think more of us should be speaking to therapists as well, because I know that because of our experiences, some people are scared to say certain things. I think that should be worked on. But the main important thing for me is more higher roles for women in the industry, and obviously the paid gap situation.
Yeah, mine would just be festival lineups, or not just like, yeah, just gig performance lineups, and just for women and gender minority artists to be seen for their talent and not just be, you know, at the moment. And I think in a way, maybe it needs to be like, well, maybe it doesn't, like female is a genre, but it would just be nice for, again, like to in articles and stuff, instead of saying female artist so and so, just like, yeah, just even that as a starting point.
I've worked on that, by the way. Anytime I talk about a female rapper, anytime I talk about this, when I write now, I literally say rapper, or I just say artist. Like, because back in the day, you say female rapper, and I thought that's an issue, because when I'm talking about male rappers, I don't say male rapper.
Totally. And age as well. Like, I love how Imelda May, I think she's 47, and she shared on her Instagram not too long ago that she was told by industry people, you need to give up on this album, or just various music projects. I'm paraphrasing there, but yeah, she went to #1, and I just would love to sort of see the industry and just people stop being so ageist. If you have heart and passion and something that people resonate with creatively, then it doesn't matter how old you are. You don't have to sell out stadiums, but you can still be a Patti Smith, or a kind of your own version of like a Frank Turner type of artist, and be successful in your own right.
Just to jump on that, you know what, one thing really annoys me, and I shouldn't moan, but you know, when you're reading articles about artists, and it kind of goes back to that age thing, compared to what you see of written of male artists, it's quite a lot of the time that how do you you know, balance your family and work life, and what's it like having children. But you don't see that in like hardly ever being asked to a man, but it's normally the first couple of things like that is asked to a woman, like, how do you, you know, juggle your work-life balance? How do you juggle a family and a music career? Quite easily, thank you very much. I just had to say that because that really annoys me.
I think I mirror pretty much everything. The age issue, one big one that would have mentioned is the therapy. Like, as you say, it's been offered for artists, but I do think that the industry has caused a lot of harm to a lot of people, and we come into music because we actually find it therapeutic, but then the industry itself hasn't been. It's actually been the opposite of that. It can be quite abusive. There's a lot of issues with power balances and people holding too much power, using NDAs against people to prevent them from talking about criminal activity, which you actually shouldn't be able to do. NDAs shouldn't and don't cover criminal activity. They should only cover things that should be secret. Like, you know, you might be working on a project, shouldn't be talking about it. That's what they're for. So I think what I'd want to see is that power balance restored, so that people don't feel that, you know, they'll be economically ruined by speaking. I think that's the big thing I think I'd like to see, and in addition to what everyone else has said.
Amazing, thank you. And just to finish, I wanted to ask you all what your favorite thing about Women in Control is.
Things like this. I think it's the community. We have such a community, and everyone just speaks amongst each other and shares advice, whether it's jobs, whether it's And there was a situation where I heard like we talk about money, like how much do you get paid? How much like I love that. And I think it's the community for me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely, it's changed my career trajectory completely. Just being able to, like I say, not have that moment of we're trying to figure each other out as human beings in the industry, because there's so much of that. Just being able to just think, oh, I don't need to do that. I can just be the person that I am, do what I'm doing, and people are going to respect that. It's just that little bit of respect is changed my life. Actually, it's completely changed my life.
Yeah, I agree on all of that. Just feeling comfortable. I feel like if I log on, I can quite happily reach out to anybody, not just like randomly for the sake of it, but people that I see and I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna ask a question, or I'm gonna see if it's okay to just share my music. And it led to me signing a music publishing deal as well, which yeah, oh thank you. So it's kind of like, yeah, it sort of, that wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have happened, I don't think, in real life, and without feeling comfortable without Women in Control creating that platform that allowed someone like myself to feel safe and comfortable enough to reach out.
Amazing, thank you so much. Well, I could talk to you all forever, but I feel I'm aware we're running out of time. So obviously it's free to join the Women in Control community. I'm muted. That was oh my god. So it's free to join the Women in Control community. I put the link in the chat if anyone does want to join. Thank you so much to Vanessa, Warda and Miri for coming and chatting with me. Your conversations, as ever, always leave me so like positive and empowered, and just, yeah, like you said, Warda, just part of an amazing community. But before you leave, does anyone have any questions for any of our amazing panelists?
I just have one question. What advice would you give to somebody that's maybe experiencing some discrimination in the workplace at the minute? How's the best way to address it? Maybe advice, or if you've been in a similar situation.
Don't feel like you can't speak to someone about it, because you can, because a lot of the time people are scared to speak about these situations when really and truly people need to hear your situation. So speak about it, don't hold it in.
Yeah, and you know, come and chat to me and Nadia as well. That's always a good thing. And there's lots of different resources. I know that Musicians Union, they have a resource about discrimination and harassment as well. Music support is there as well. Help musicians can help. But yeah, it's so difficult, because I've definitely been in that situation as well, and I felt very on my own, and almost like I felt like it was, oh, I can't say anything because I might ruin my career. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't ever feel like that. There's people around you who can support you. So, you know, come and talk to us, and talk to someone in that organization if you can, that you know well, and perhaps can help you and do the right, what processes that you want to do as well. Like, some people don't want to go forward with it, you know, in the organization, or called out in the organization, but we're all here, we're all women, and we're all in the same industry, and we're all here to support each other. So don't hold it in. Amazing. Well, if there's no more questions, I would just want to say another thank you for, you know, to Women's Work and Onya to having us and being able to have this opportunity. And you know, Women in Control isn't just London as well. We did recently an event in Scotland, Northern Ireland. You know, we're all over the UK and all over the world. Actually, we've got lots of different members across the world. And if anyone's got any questions as well, I'll put my email in the chat, so you can always pop me an email. But yeah, thank you so much, and thank you to Vanessa, Miriam, Warda. You guys are just always just amazing. I could go on about it forever, but I won't. You're always amazing.
And Claire, thank you very much to you, because often the host doesn't get a wee bit of a thank you and a round of applause. So thank you very much to you. You did all my work for me. You've done all the work. So yeah, just thank you to all four of you for coming today. I was taking loads of notes. I was like, yes, like shaking my head vigorously, like, yes, come on. So I've gotten some really good advice there. And do you know what? Sometimes I think it's things you already know. It's things you've been told 20 times, but doing this type of thing like reinforces it, and you're like, yes, I knew this already, but I forgot. I need to do. So thank you all very much. I'm going to stop the recording now.